Welcome. You're now listening to The Asian Trio, the podcast where we share cultural differences regarding different topics each episode. This is your main host, Maria, who represents Korean culture.
This is Chan Wu from Malaysia.
This is Victoria from Vietnam.
In today's episode, we're going to talk about daily transportations.
In Malaysia, the most common form of daily transportation is the private car. Many people use car every day to go to school, work, university, or other places. One of the main reasons for this is conveniency. Cars allow people to travel direct to their destination without needing to wait for buses or trains. And this actually makes daily travel easier and more flexible.
Is parking fee or like maintenance fee cheap in Malay?
The parking fees is very cheap compared to Korea, and it depends on where you go. Like for example, what we call the shopping mall, I think it costs like 1,000 won per hour actually. So it's very cheap compared to Korea. But and in other case, the maintenance fee I would say it's not that expensive as well. It depends what car you use actually. Like if you use like those local brand car, the maintenance fee will be very cheap. But if you prefer to use the what we call the overseas brand car, then the maintenance fees will be like a bit higher. Yeah. And another reason is that the public transportation in Malaysia is not equally convenient in every area. In major cities like Kuala Lumpur, people can use public transport such as MRT, LRT, monorail buses, and KTM trains. These systems are helpful and affordable, especially for people living in urban areas. However, outside big city, public transportation may be limited or less connected. Because of this, many people still depends on private car in their daily lives.
But do you think the cost of owning a car in Malaysia is reasonable for most people?
I think owning a car in Malaysia is more reasonable if people choose a local brand car like Produa or Proton, because the price is much more affordable and reasonable. In addition, the gas price can be considered reasonable because most of the citizens are qualified for the gas subsidies. Uh, cars are also important for families. For example, parents often drive their children to school, and workers usually drive to their office. For many Malaysians, owning a car is not only convenience but also necessary. Beside cars, e-hailing services like Grab are also popular, especially among young people and those who do not drive. Public transportation is growing in Malaysia, but private cars remain in the main choice for everyday travel.
Wasn't
E-hailing is something like using a smartphone app to request and book a ride. Just like how we book a ride using Kakao Taxi, but in Malaysia we just call it e-hailing service.
so it's like an Uber?
Uh, yeah, it's actually Uber, but we call it Grab. We used to have Uber last time, but now we don't have it anymore.
Oh,
Yeah. So I would like to talk about the cost and convenience. In Malaysia, public transportation is usually cheaper than using a private car. For example, taking the MRT, LRT bus, or KTM is more affordable for students and workers who travel every day. Public transport can help people save money because they do not need to pay for gas, tolls, parking fee, or car maintenance. Actually, we have one company that is called Rapid Korea, and Rapid Korea is the company that runs all the public transportation in Kuala Lumpur area. And this company actually offer monthly style passes such as My50, which provide 30 days of unlimited rides for just around like 50,000 won. This actually make public transport more affordable for regular people. But it's not always convenient because the public transportation system is not fully developed, I would say. Because of this, many Malaysians still prefer to use private cars. This is because cars are more often more convenient. With a car, people can travel directly to their destination without waiting for a bus or train. They also have more freedom to choose their own route and schedule.
So, what do
Yes.
you think are the main reasons why public transportation in Malaysia is still not fully developed?
In my opinion, one main reason is that Malaysia has depended on car for a long time, so public transportation did not develop equally in every area. However, in urban areas, the government is now working to improve and develop the public transportation system. Outside big city, the roads are often limited and not fully connected. Also, in some places, people still find driving more convenient, so public transport is not always the first choice. Another convenient option in Malaysia is e-hailing service like Grab. I just mentioned. A Grab is useful for people who do not own a car but still want a quick and comfortable way to travel. However, it can become expensive if it used very often. So overall, public transportation in Malaysia is usually more affordable, but private cars are often more convenient. And from my experience, one of the best thing about transportation in Malaysia is the convenience when I am in a big city. In places like Kuala Lumpur, I can use different types of public transport such as the MRT, LRT, or buses. I feel that this is a very helpful because sometimes public transport is faster than driving, especially when the roads are busy.
Have you ever experienced heavy traffic in big cities like Kuala Lumpur?
Yes, I have. I experienced heavy traffic in Kuala Lumpur during peak hours, and it was so frustrating that after that, I tried to avoid going out at those times. I also think Grab is very convenient. If I do not want to wait for public transport or if I need to go somewhere directly, using Grab is an easy option, although the price will be higher, definitely. So for me, the best experience is having different choices depending on where I want to go. However, I have also had some bad experience. The worst part for me is traffic jam I just mentioned just now. In Malaysia, traffic can be very heavy, especially during peak hours. Sometimes even a short trip can take a long time and then can be very tiring and frustrating. Another problem I noticed is that public transportation is not equally convenient in every area. In some places, for example, my hometown, Johor Bahru, it is very difficult to find public transportation. And even I find it, I cannot go directly to my destination. Because of this, I feel like I have to depend more on car since public transport is limited.
Do you know how to drive?
Yes, I know how to drive. I have driving license, but I afraid to drive on big road, for example, highway actually. Yeah.
So
So
only just short distance?
yeah, short distance and not a
Mhm.
big road, no highway, please.
Understood.
And so overall, based on my own experience, transportation in Malaysia has both advantage and disadvantage. I like that there are many options, especially in urban area, but traffic jam and limited access in some places can still make traveling stressful.
So, moving on to Vietnam, if you have ever been to Vietnam or even just heard about my country, I think one of the most thing people will notice right away is the traffic. It's actually a bit of a culture shock for many visitors at first because everything feels so crowded and kind of chaotic, especially since motorbikes are everywhere. You will see hundreds, sometimes thousands of motorbikes on the roads at the same time moving in every direction, and somehow it still works.
So, like, if I want to travel to Vietnam today, so do you think like traffic in Vietnam is difficult for like foreign visitors like me to adapt to?
Yeah, of course. I think it's quite difficult first when the traffic looks chaotic, overwhelming, and even a bit scary because car and motorbikes don't usually stop completely in some like some other countries. But after a few time, people can gradually get used to it. Once they understand the flow and how people adjust their movement, it's actually become easier to navigate. So even though it's challenging at the beginning, I think it's not impossible to adapt.
Mm.
Mm. And in Vietnam, motorbikes are basically the main way people get around every day, and they really shape the way traffic look and feels. But a few years recently, there's been an interesting change. A Vietnamese company called VinFast has started producing electric cars and electric motorbikes, aiming to build a domestic car industry and makes transportation more accessible, affordable, and sustainable. And we can already see it's gradually becoming more popular. So even though transportation in Vietnam slowly changing, motorbikes are still dominant way people get around. So why are motorbikes still so popular in Vietnam? One of the most reason related to cost. Vietnam is not a major car producing country, so most of cars are imported. Because of the high import taxes and additional costs, cars are relatively expensive and not affordable for many people.
Yeah, I agree. It's the same in Malaysia too. Because the import taxes are high, people prefer to buy local car brands. Besides local car brands, I think Japanese car brands are also still affordable in Malaysia.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think Vietnam is starting to move in that direction too, but it's still quite new. So I agree, sir. Motorbikes have become much more accessible option. They are cheaper to buy, easier to maintain, and more affordable in daily use. Even though public transport in Vietnam, like buses, are quite cheap, just 500 won for one time and 15,000 won for 1 month, which is very affordable. However, they are not always the most convenient option, especially in a big city where people need to move quickly and flexibly. Motorbike are very flexible. People can easily move through small streets, avoid traffic jams, and park almost everywhere.
But does motorbike accidents happen often? Because it seems dangerous when motorbikes are all over the place, like pedestrian roads and all.
Yeah, accidents do happen, but it's not as bad as look. People are quite used to the traffic and try to stay aware. And honestly, if people are not careful, accident can happen everywhere, not just in Vietnam. Yeah.
Mm. Victoria, I have something for you. So I think you can avoid traffic jams by riding a motorbike, right?
If compared to car, motorbikes are definitely more flexible, but at the same time, during rush hour, even motorbikes can get stuck, especially on big city like Ho Chi Minh City. So it's not always easy to completely avoid traffic jams, I think.
Okay.
Habit also play an important role. For many Vietnamese people, using a motorbike is a part of daily life. People grow up seeing their parents use motorbikes, so it's become a natural choice. However, a deeper reason is infrastructure. The road system in Vietnam is not fully designed for a large number of cars, and many streets are narrow. Parking spaces are very limited. Because of this, if everyone suddenly switched to car, the traffic situation would become much worse. There even a joke in Vietnamese that if everyone drove a car, we would have to walk on the top of cars to move around because the road would be completely blocked.
But why doesn't Vietnamese government just improve the road infrastructure for cars?
I think they are actually improving it, but it still takes time. Like in my city, I have seen some areas where government is expanding roads and even relocating people to improve the traffic condition. But since cities are already crowded, it's not something can change quickly.
I'm not really good with geology, so say, does Vietnam like have a small landmass like Korea? Because why isn't the government not spending enough money to develop larger roads?
In my perspective, it's not just about land size because Vietnam actually has a large area. But the problem is that many urban areas were built a long time ago. So the roads were not originally designed for a large number of cars, and also in the big cities, space is already limited. Expanding roads not just about construction, but also involve relocating people, businesses, which is very expensive and complex. So overall, I feel like it's not about not spending enough. It's just about long and complicated process. The current infrastructure simply cannot support a car-based transportation system. So overall, motorbikes are not just a preference, but also a practical solution based on economic condition, daily habits, and infrastructure limitation. From my personal experience, I think transportation in Vietnam can feel very different depending on where you are. I spent 18 years living in a small city where motorbike was also a main form of transportation, but I never really felt stressed or even overwhelmed by traffic. However, when I first moved to Ho Chi Minh City, I was honestly shocked, even as a Vietnamese person. In my hometown, most roundabouts which only have about four directions or so it feels quite simple and manageable. But in a big city like Ho Chi Minh City, some intersection can have eight or even 10 different directions and everything feel much more chaotic.
Wow, I never seen a roundabout with 10 different directions. Wow, this is insane actually.
Yeah, it's so crazy, right? In Ho Chi Minh City, some intersection connect many different streets, so it can feel really confusing. But somehow people still can get used to it. And I remember feeling like I could lose control or even get into an accident at any moment if I wasn't careful, especially during rush hour in that kind of intersection. There was even a time when I was stuck in traffic in the city center for almost 2 hours and I felt completely exhausted. So yeah, even though I'm used to motorbikes traffic in big city in Vietnam can still be really overwhelmed.
So, do you think like public transportation, like what we call, do you think public transport like underground subway could help reduce this kind of traffic stress?
It's probably have quite a lot, but the metro system still quite new in Vietnam. We just have that few years recently, so it hasn't really changed how people travel yet. But maybe in the future it will be more effective.
Okay. So I'll move on to the daily transportation in Korea. Many Koreans prefer taking public transportation, such as public buses or the subway. Since Korea is a country with a relatively big population for a small landmass, it is much faster to take buses and subway compared to driving, especially because riding a motorbike isn't as mainstream as other Asian countries like China or Southeast Asian nations. Public transportation is mostly jammed during commuting time, but driving isn't an easy option in South Korea.
Yeah, I agree, but even the subway gets very overcrowded during rush hour. I think it's because of the high population density in Korea.
Yeah, but at least subways run by schedule and are a lot cheaper than
Mm,
driving. So
Yeah.
uh no thanks to the expensive car, expensive gas, and not to mention the expensive parking fee. There are so many reasons not to buy a car, especially without a family member to take care of. However, what young adults do right after their graduation exam is studying for a driver's license. Although owning a car can be troublesome, having a driver's license right after the exam when they have free time to spare can be helpful in many circumstances, such as getting a job or renting a car, etc.
I agree. Some of my Korean friends enjoy going for a drive. And there's an application called Soul Car in Korea where people can actually rent a car for a short period of time. Have you ever gone for a drive?
I actually so car had this promotion with our university for like giving 30% off. My dad also rents cars when he comes back to Korea for work or visits. For me, I don't have my driver's license, but I went out with my friend who has a car for the first time last year. And going on a drive with a friend was really exciting and fun, especially we just became adults.
Yeah, I also think so car is a good platform. I wish we could have something like that in Vietnam because it would be convenient, especially since cars are quite expensive in Vietnam. Like instead of owning a car, people could just rent one whenever they need. But it might be a bit hard to apply in Vietnam now due to the traffic and the parking problems.
Yeah, in Korea, taxis are also expensive compared to countries with a large population like China. Therefore, the most convenient and efficient option is the public transportation. For cost and convenience, costs and policies differ from districts, but what I'm quoting mainly deals with Seoul's policy. So buses are usually around 1400 to 1700 won. It is free for elders above age 75 and kids under age 6. Subways are usually around 1500 won, give or take. Buses and subways both allow transfer discounts, usually about 1200 to 1500 won, meaning that the regular fee is gonna be exempted. Moreover, Seoul provides citizens with a policy called the Climate Card, which is a subscription transportation card. It helps a lot of people who uses public transportations daily. It costs about 15,000 won per month. You can use the card without any limits. Another policy is called a K-Pass card, which has a 30% payback system of your monthly public transportation expenditure. Thanks to these kind of welfare policies, taking public transportations is much easier and cheaper than other transportation methods. Even though Korea isn't a big nation by size, the public transportation system is well provided, especially in cities such as Seoul. There's literally nowhere in Seoul that you can't go by taking the bus or subway. The ETA is on the dot most of the time. Buses and subways both run often, and they are usually not that fully packed unless it's a rush hour.
Yes, I think public transportation in Korea is very punctual and it's totally different from Malaysia public transportation system.
Oh yeah, I believe that's just how Koreans all are. They love efficiency and punctuality without wasting time, both in a good way and a bad way. But like, how is Malaysia like for public transportation?
Well, it's not punctual at all.
Is it like late for like
Yeah, it's
5 minutes,
late
10 minutes?
and yeah, it's very late. Although we have the what we call the schedule, but it's not always on time. Yeah, you just have to think like it will be late like for 10 minutes or 20 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
Mm.
crazy, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, like to Koreans who emphasizes the importance of time and efficiency, it isn't really a surprise that public transportation runs this way. For my experience with transportations, since I have experienced both South Korean and Chinese transportation while living in Korea and China, I can't help but mention my experience on both countries. One of the most striking transportation while living in China was the three-wheeled vehicle or sanluncho, which is a small rectangular trailer combined with a motorbike. It's small, rather fast, and the driver is unlikely to follow the traffic signal. It's unsafe, I'll be honest, but worth trying out since it's a cheap method. Uh, it's a bit expensive than the bus, but cheaper than an Uber.
Uh, may I ask how do you feel when riding like what you call it the three-wheeled vehicle in China? Have you tried before?
I've tried so many times, especially because the subway station and my house is a bit far away, like 30-minute walk. So I had to ride this Sanruncho like every time when I go back home from the station. So
Mm.
it's definitely dangerous for sure. However, it is cheap. You can also bargain with the driver. Like if he calls out like 10 yuan and it's too expensive, I can like kind of have a negotiation with him. It's kind of fun to be honest. It doesn't have a seatbelt, so it's mostly used for a short distance.
Wow, you can do the negotiation. Oh my God.
Like if he calls like 10 and if it's too expensive, I'll go like, well, Uber is also 10, so you have to kind of like lower the price.
Mm.
Oh, while in Korea, scooter sharing system was installed in 2018. In order to drive this electric scooter, you need a special license and a helmet, and you can pay by scanning the QR code. Despite its convenience, it has a bad reputation due to people who are riding the scooter without helmet, without keeping the suggested speed limit, and without a license.
Yes, I agree. Like, although it is convenient, but many people see it negatively because some riders break traffic rules and create safety risks. For example, some people even ride while drunk, which make it more dangerous.
Yeah, I wasn't actually in Korea when this was installed, so I don't really have a lot of experiences encountering it, only by the news. So, have you ever seen one while you were in Korea?
Yes, I saw a news like few years ago. It's about like BTS member Sugar riding a scooter while
Oh,
drunk.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. That
Have
was big.
actually
That was
me
big.
too. I have actually seen some cases like that. I once saw someone riding an electric scooter while drunk and they fell down and was stopped by the police. I've tried once before and I noticed that since last year, it seems like there are stricter regulations. So in my area now, it's quite hard to find a electric scooter, but I still can see some around our school.
Okay. Today we've talked about transportation systems in each other countries and our own experiences. See you guys next episode. Stay tuned in. Thank you for listening. This was the Asian Trio.